15 years ago, Massachusetts invested about $1 billion along the lines of what we're doing now for climate tech to create a life sciences hub for the world. It's safe to say that that investment paid off. The life sciences industry is an economic powerhouse for the Commonwealth. And we see a similar opportunity to lead the climate tech industry. But when we think about our plan for climate tech, we're thinking about things just a bit differently. And that is to think strategically and thoughtfully about how this industry can be a boost for every region in Massachusetts.
Dr. Emily Reichert is Chief Executive Officer of the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center. She leads its efforts to build a robust, internationally competitive clean energy economy in Massachusetts. Before MassCEC, joining MassCEC in 2023, she served as founding CEO of Greentown Labs, the largest climate tech startup incubator in North America for nearly a decade. She spearheaded the rapid growth of Greentown Labs into a global center for climate technology innovation. The startups that have been incubated thereby have collectively raised more than $2 billion and created thousands of jobs in Massachusetts.
It is a pleasure to be here at the Boston Public Library. This is certainly one of the treasures in our city and in all of Massachusetts. I want to thank the WorldBoston organization for inviting me to speak to you this evening. I really love the idea of citizen diplomacy and the global engagement programs. I know MassCEC has worked with you on those, and it's just such a good idea to be having these interchanges. It is, I think, critical to solving the big problems that face us in the world. I just want to thank everyone in the audience for being here and for those joining us online. And, before I say a few words about MassCEC's work, I just have to say that MassCEC is a part of a much bigger organization, that being the state government and a lot of people who are working on climate and clean energy issues in all facets. So the work I'm going to talk about will mainly be that of MassCEC, but keep in mind there's a lot of us really working to solve the climate challenge here in Massachusetts. I should also say that our work wouldn't be possible without the leadership in the vision of our governor, Maura Healey, and our lieutenant governor, Kim Driscoll, and the entire administration. So Massachusetts has long been a climate leader, both statewide and locally. And I'd have to say that leadership has grown further in the almost first 2 years of the Healey-Driscoll administration. Over those past 2 years, Governor Healey has taken nation-leading steps to combat climate change. And those include appointing the first climate chief, making Massachusetts the first in the nation to establish a cabinet-level position related to climate in state government. In another first, the Healey-Driscoll administration created the nation's first state-level Office of Energy Transformation to execute a community-by-community decarbonization strategy aiming to coordinate a just transition for impacted workers and businesses. And to further ensure a just transition, the administration released the Commonwealth's first ever environmental justice strategy for Massachusetts. And this strategy incorporates environmental justice and equity principles in all the work that we are doing at the Commonwealth on energy and climate. Let me talk a little bit about the organization that I lead. MassCEC is what we call a quasi-state government development agency, and we are dedicated to accelerating the growth of the clean energy and climate tech sector across Massachusetts. And our work really spans 4 areas of climate impact. First is focused on startups and new climate-focused businesses. We try to help them grow faster by backing a community of researchers, startups, and established industry players, creating an ecosystem where they can connect and thrive. We also contribute to meeting our state's ambitious climate goals by tackling barriers to widespread use of clean energy and climate technology in buildings, transportation, and the grid. We're building a very cutting edge offshore wind industry. We're marshaling world-class ports in New Bedford and most recently in Salem, while addressing supply chain and workforce development challenges that are associated with any new industry. And we're growing a diverse and talented clean energy workforce by supporting a dynamic network of community-based organizations, labor, training providers, schools, and employers committed to a sustainable future. There's no doubt that Massachusetts is a national climate tech leader. But you may have heard that Governor Healy and her administration want Massachusetts to be the global hub for climate tech. The climate innovation lab for the world is how she puts it. To achieve this goal, MassCEC is working to build what we call a climate corridor across Massachusetts. And our vision for this climate corridor is a multifaceted, region-specific approach to climate tech economic development, ranging from way out in Western Mass to right here in the Boston area. And I'm going to share more about this regional strategy towards the end of my presentation. Every region in Massachusetts has unique strengths to contribute to this work, and the Commonwealth's leadership in climate tech has the potential to create thousands of jobs and generate billions of dollars in economic activity. Our response to climate change is, in fact, a massive opportunity to advance solutions to the greatest challenge of our time and create a powerful new engine for the Massachusetts economy. During my time at MassCEC, I've traveled the state to meet with innovators who are growing their companies in Massachusetts. And most of these innovators got their start at world-class colleges and universities right here in the Boston area. And they've chosen to stay in Massachusetts because they believe that it is the best place in the world to bring an innovative idea to life. And our role as an organization is to help them stay, scale, and succeed. So what is climate tech? I've already mentioned that several times, so let me give you a little better definition. Climate tech encompasses the innovative technological solutions that mitigate impacts of climate change, help communities adapt, and build resilience in systems and infrastructure. Because climate tech or climate change is already here. So in addition to mitigating emissions, we also need to think about what do we need in order to have our communities be more resilient to the climate change that is already coming at us. Some examples of climate tech: low carbon cement, green steel, anchor technology for offshore wind farms. Climate tech is an industry with just countless innovations, and it's an industry that is growing very quickly here in Massachusetts and around the globe. The Healy-Driscoll administration wants Massachusetts to take advantage of its strengths and lead the industries that are going to solve big problems. We've been a strong leader in the life sciences in the past, and our new bets are climate tech and AI. Every region across the Commonwealth has assets from research to manufacturing to contribute to and benefit from this growing climate tech industry. And embracing this industry will not only create jobs and generate economic activity for our communities, but it will get us closer to achieving the ambitious climate goals that we've set for Massachusetts while providing innovations that can benefit the entire planet. Massachusetts can accelerate the development and commercializations that will help us combat climate change, making our communities locally here cleaner, healthier, and safer. And as I've said, these technologies will have a national and global impact, and hopefully inspire climate action around the world by helping other countries meet their target and positioning Massachusetts as a place where climate innovation thrives. And this is how Massachusetts can continue to lead despite uncertainty at the federal level. So I'd like to say a few words about the Mass Leads Act. This was briefly mentioned by Mary. Specifically, the Mass Leads Act was signed into law just a few weeks ago, and it authorized up to hundreds of millions of dollars for climate innovation over the next 10 years. And just yesterday, we had a formal signing ceremony and celebration with the governor and leaders from the Massachusetts State Legislature. I see investment in the climate tech industry as our message as a Commonwealth to the world. And that message is that we are ready to be the #1 destination for climate tech innovators, entrepreneurs, and businesses. We want Massachusetts to be the place where someone can develop their climate solution in the lab, grow it into a business, and find the space to manufacture it. So to climate tech entrepreneurs in other states or countries, Massachusetts is open for business. Other countries are investing in this industry, and time is of the essence for us to take advantage of this opportunity. States can flex their economic muscle and signal to the world that we are ready to lead. The late Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis famously called states laboratories of democracy. I believe states are also laboratories of innovation. But of course, states can't do it alone, and we do it with local leaders, economic development officials, and community-based organizations that we partner with colleges, universities, research institutions, investors, advocates, and global conveners like WorldBoston. You may be wondering how this Mass Leads Act will make Massachusetts the climate innovation lab for the world. It includes up to $200 million in new bond funding to support climate tech entities as they innovate, manufacture, and deploy new technologies. It also includes up to $200 million to support offshore wind economic development. And it includes $300 million for a new tax incentive program that helps attract, retain, and grow climate tech companies in Massachusetts. And that's a first. So we passed this bill. Now what? We do have a plan. And in January, we'll be releasing that plan to the public. What I can say about our economic development plan for climate tech is, as I mentioned, it takes a very regional approach. 15 years ago, Massachusetts invested about $1 billion along the lines of what we're doing now for climate tech to create a life sciences hub for the world. It's safe to say that that investment paid off. The life sciences industry is an economic powerhouse for the Commonwealth. And we see a similar opportunity to lead the climate tech industry. But when we think about our plan for climate tech, we're thinking about things just a bit differently. And that is to think strategically and thoughtfully about how this industry can be a boost for every region in Massachusetts. How can the Berkshires lead? How can Central Mass lead? What about Southeastern Massachusetts? What we found and what our report will show is that every region in the state has unique economic assets to make Massachusetts the global leader in climate tech. Clusters already exist across the Commonwealth. Greater Boston has a very mature climate tech innovation ecosystem that generates R&D and serves as a financial center for the industry. Central Massachusetts, anchored by Worcester and Devens, is home to a growing community of innovators working on energy storage, biomanufacturing, and industrial decarbonization. Southeastern Massachusetts and Cape Cod, pioneers of the nation's offshore wind industry and leaders in the blue economy, can build on deep research and deployment assets to become a global hub for ocean innovation. The Berkshires region has a near-term opportunity to contribute to this climate tech supply chain and cement its lead in agriculture, low-carbon agriculture technology. The region's brownfield sites present long-term opportunities for large-scale clean energy and climate tech manufacturing. The communities of Pioneer Valley had the most substantial opportunities for scaled industrial climate tech manufacturing due to affordable renewable energy, site availability, and a strong base of industrial talent and innovation. The Northeast, with its talented workforce and robust higher education network, has the potential to be a hub for advanced climate tech manufacturing, requiring high-skilled labor. Thanks to the development of the Salem offshore wind terminal, this region is on track to lead key elements of the offshore wind ecosystem. So in summary, the Mass Leads Act is a big deal for every region in our state. It will create thousands of jobs and generate billions of dollars for the state's economy, and it will strengthen our relationships around the world. Massachusetts is and has been for many years a magnet for innovation. For hundreds of years, we've been the place for revolutionary ideas that improve the human condition. People from all over the world have looked to Massachusetts for a better future. Many of those people have opened businesses or found work in our cities and towns. Many have come to further their education and our colleges and universities. Many come to experiment, to invent and create. Massachusetts is a small state that has a global impact, and we want to use that impact to accelerate climate innovation. We want to take a climate solution that's developed at MIT, manufacture it in the Berkshires, and send it to be used in homes and buildings across the globe. Like World Boston, MassCEC is a convener. Bringing people together is central to our mission. I encourage you to explore our work, engage our staff, and share ideas. Thank you again to World Boston and everyone joining us here at Boston Public Library or online. I believe we'll now open the program up for questions. Thank you.
I'm going to capture the mic and ask the first question, and that is to boil it down to an oversimplification. Is nuclear energy a clean energy? And what's the strategy for Massachusetts and for the world as we head towards as we attempt a fossil-free future?
Well, I think many would tell you that nuclear energy is a low carbon energy source and one that we are going to need for baseload power in the New England region and across the country and around the world for some time to come. There are not new nuclear plants being built, however. And the promise, I think, is technologies that are small and modular. And we have scientists and engineers working on those at MIT. There's actually a fusion company out in Western Mass in Devon's Commonwealth Fusion. And so I think we're trying to find the next generation of these technologies in order to include them in the bigger climate tech portfolio.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raul Alcala. Would you address in what ways the federal government is being helpful and not in your efforts, and where you stand vis-a-vis the entire United States?
I'd say in general, under the Biden administration, there have been many major programs that have helped us to do several things. One is around manufacturing of clean energy technology at scale. And so providing funding to enable that to be set up and rapidly deployed has been one aspect of funding, one programmatic aspect that has come through the Biden administration. There's also been a lot of investment in early stage new technologies and helping them grow and helping them get to the point of commercialization and manufacturing. And then as well, there have been many programs, and there's a kind of alphabet soup of letters, which I'm sure you can Google at your leisure. But the general idea is, how do we decarbonize our existing infrastructure, whether it be buildings or transportation, as quickly as possible? So a lot of that federal funding then gets funneled through states down to the local level, at which point we can distribute it to schools to enable decarbonization of school buildings, or to communities to allow EV chargers to be installed at more scale than we have them today. So I hope that answers your question. I'd say in general, this administration, the Biden administration, has made bigger strides towards addressing greenhouse gases than any previous administration. So I'd say overall, it's been very helpful.
Hi, Mary Mendoza. We just had an election where Donald Trump won, and he won supposedly on the idea that the economy is terrible and people feel they were doing a lot better under his presidency. What do any of these things that you were developing, we have some of the highest electrical costs in the nation. What will any of this do to lower the electrical costs and make these programs much more sustainable and much more attractive for the average consumer in states all across the country?
Well, there's a lot of aspects to cost of electricity that shows up on your bill. And will one particular climate technology developed in Massachusetts solve the entire challenge? probably not. But I could tell you that the Healy Driscoll administration is working on this problem on multiple fronts. And one would be a recent permitting and siting bill that was passed by the legislature. And that is really reducing the amount of time and the amount of, therefore, cost that goes into developing new renewable energy in Massachusetts. So that would be one example. Whenever you think about the last question around federal government, the more that we can do these things at scale, so the more homes that can be decarbonized, the more EV charging stations that are put in, the lower the cost overall for for the entire system. So I would say that trying to get these things to scale in the same way that we were able to get the cost of solar to come down precipitously over the last 10 to 15 years, that is a big part of the goal. In terms of climate technologies themselves, I'd say technologies that help support the use of energy storage, technologies that help us run the electrical grid in a smarter way. It was built many, many years ago, and so there's kind of one-way traffic, and that's all you can do to this at this point. But there's a lot of technology out there that can help us do that more efficiently. So those are some examples of things that I can think of right this moment that we are working on to help lower energy costs.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation, first of all. I do have a question. How do
You can speak right into your mic.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. I just wanted to ask, how do you navigate potential intellectual property rights problems? Because, I mean, obviously, it's no use making technology that is then too expensive to be used pervasively.
So the question is, sorry, can you clarify a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, an example. So I'm from Germany, and they invented double glazing, but Germany is unwilling to relieve themselves from their property rights. So this technology cannot be implemented unless states actually buy off these property rights. And I mean, that's such a simple thing, double glazing, and yet it is impossible for especially poorer nations to finance this technology, even though it's been existent for the past 40 years, at least.
I think we tend to do that through building regulations, so building codes. And this administration, the Healy Driscoll administration, has done a lot of work to update codes. We have something called the Building Stretch Code, which is, I think it's not been adopted by all cities and towns yet, but by a few that are kind of out front and testing these things for the rest of us, so to speak. So I think I don't know the case well enough in Germany, but I can tell you that in the US and locally, we are really trying to address challenges like that through the code system that get more stringent over time, but also allow people to take the time to move to a new technology. So you may not want to replace your water heater or your heating system immediately, but the next time that you do so, if you have the information that allows you to make that cleaner choice, then that's what we hope to be able to do.
Two questions that are similar on Zoom. I'm going to rephrase a bit with apologies to the questioners, but I think what we're getting at here is the impact of the MassCEC Act on our economy. Say in Massachusetts, you put in 700 million or $1 billion. Is there any way of calculating what that's supposed to get us in return in the future?
Yeah, so we did an economic study prior to this bill ever kind of seeing the light of day. And over the 10-year period, I believe it is around 8,000 new jobs would be created. And in terms of the impact, I believe it's around $14 billion in return value. So I may not have that number exactly right, but we can follow up on that. It's in that order of magnitude.
What are your thoughts and your organization's position on thinking about solar geoengineering?
Geoengineering, as in putting stuff in the atmosphere. That isn't really something that we have considered too much in Massachusetts. We have looked at carbon removal into um, water bodies, but that's not quite the same thing. So I'd say my impression of that technology is that it is still quite unproven and fairly untested, except in academic environments. So I'd say we have a ways to go before that's a solution that would be considered on a governmental level.
Hi, I'm Jason Athay. I'm a PhD student and PhD candidate at Clark University in Worcester, Massachusetts. My question is, I saw you put up a map where you kind of broke the state into different regions. And I know that, electoral geography and politics as they are in Massachusetts, the immediate area around Boston is extremely blue, and then purple to sometimes red in other parts of the state. I'm curious about the extent to which you are familiar with public opinion in other parts of the state, and the extent to which there is political resistance to some of the programs being framed as clean energy or climate solutions when climate change denial is more common among conservative people and in conservative parts of the state. Thank you.
Honestly, I wouldn't say that I've come up against any climate denial in this role as of yet. And I've been all over the state. And I would say in general, people are fairly excited about the opportunity to, it's not just clean energy for the sake of, let's do something better for the environment always. It can also reduce costs. It makes your home healthier. You're reducing air pollution. So there are many benefits actually to clean energy technology when you include things like heat pumps in your thinking. And if you have an electric school bus and that isn't putting diesel fumes into your community, I think everyone can get behind benefits like that. And when we go around and have conversations about climate technology, I'd say in general, people are just excited to hear about it. They're excited to be part of it because most people are interested in learning about new things and excited about innovation and what's coming next. And so, generally, I've had very positive experiences in interacting in all parts of the state. I would say that one exception is around offshore wind, and that's kind of challenging. There's a lot of misinformation out there. And so, it's something that we're thinking about and trying to make sure that information that's factual is getting out there to counter the misinformation.
How close is fusion to actually being? You read it's getting closer and closer, but I'm 63 and I've been hearing that for 40 something years.
It's one of those technologies that has cycles where it comes around again. There is a company that is working on manufacturing related to fusion reactors right here in Massachusetts. So is it commercialized? No. Is it on its way to being commercialized? I think yes. So I think that soon you will start to see these reactors in pilot phase, and we'll then see how that enables us to get to scale. I can't say the time frame on that, but I do know that we're actually quite close to piloting these things out in Massachusetts. And the fact that our state is so open to doing innovative new things, I've heard the CEO of Commonwealth Fusion talk about why Massachusetts, why they're doing it here, and that's because of the kind of openness to this environment. It's because of the talent, but it is also because of the kind of willingness to try new things and look for solutions.
I'm wondering if we can't help myself, WorldBoston, World Affairs Council, if you would talk a little bit about the international dimension, particularly regarding foreign investment, which we love to attract around here, what the interest from foreign investors has been, and what changes our new president is likely, and his trade administration is likely to bring in?
Well, I think the biggest area that overlaps with our work that I'd point to in foreign investment is in the offshore wind industry. We have most of the developers are coming from Europe, and they have the experience setting up this industry in the UK, out off the coast of Denmark. And so, they bring with them not only money, but actually the knowledge about how you get this started and grow it, which we are still in the baby steps of here in the United States. So that's the most direct example I can think of. We also have a lot of interest from companies coming from other parts of the world to land in Boston because of the strong, or I should say in Massachusetts, because of the strong ecosystem here, because of the talent, because of the companies that are already here and our aggressive policy. So I'd say that is not an uncommon request we get is from other, climate tech companies coming from Europe, coming from other parts of the world that are interested in being here and growing here.
I have many questions and I don't know which one I said, but you know that if you want to have a clean climate or clean energy, you have to engagement with the industry.
Mhm.
And this is so difficult. And you know that there are so many things to control and should be under control. For example, the carbon content or clean water, and everything depends on. I have two questions. Have you got any specific goal? For example, I am a chemist. I have to say example. For example, if you have a nitrate in the water, you have to check under, for example, 50 ppm and under.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a goal for your clean climate, what's your goal? Have you got any tangible goal?
Okay. So this is a question about if we can generalize it a little bit, maybe what standards you're using. Is that a good way to put it? And let's get the person over on so Matt is right behind you.
Thank you for mentioning the resource of brownfields as, I think, a siting resource for clean energy technologies. That's not a new resource, and there have been obstacles that preventing that from being utilized right now. Grid resources, siting, and permitting. Can you talk about the programs or steps that will be taken to make that great resource more readily available in view of those obstacles that are preventing them from being used at this time?
Okay, thank you.
Start with the first one first or the last one first? Well, let me take the last one first. So one thing that we're really aiming to do with this Mass Leads climate tech initiative is make it easier for companies to not only start here but grow here and stay here. And that land use is a key part of that. We need places for companies to be able to manufacture, to test, to demonstrate, to deploy, and the brownfield sites are an important aspect of that. I would say that there's two things that I would point to. One is the recent siting and permitting bill that was passed by the legislature. That is really streamlining a lot of processes for how clean energy is sited and permitted. And it basically boils down to right now, there are local processes and state processes, and the timelines are, tend to add up to be sometimes 5 years before you can get something cited. And so the new way of thinking about it is really streamlining those processes so that you're looking at much shorter timelines because you're applying with state and local at the same time. So that's one example I'd point you to. We are looking to, as part of our climate tech initiative, really map the whole state and what the power resources are in the entire state. For example, there's different there's different parts of the state that some are investor-owned utilities is where power is provided. Others are municipal light plants. And sometimes municipal light plants can provide more flexibility. And so that is another way that potentially you can get access to sites where that might already have a lot of power, and there can be more flexibility to turn things on faster. So that's two thoughts on that. In terms of tangible goals, yes, Massachusetts has very rigorous climate goals. There's a clean energy and climate plan that is updated every 5 years. And we are, no, I should say, I think it's actually updated maybe every 3 years. And there's a major new edition every 5 years. And that sets the targets for all industries in Massachusetts, whether it's buildings or transportations, it's sector specific. And then we also have goals around the amount of clean energy that we want to bring into the Commonwealth, and through a variety of different sources, whether it be offshore wind or additional solar or hydropower. So we have, I'd say, very, very specific goals. And I'd invite you to look at the 2025 or 2030 plans that are already out there on the Massachusetts state websites.
So that's a Massachusetts state government publication.
Correct.
And probably the Department of Energy, or
it would be under the Energy and Environmental Affairs Executive Office.
There we go.
Thank you. I'm interested in your career background as the Dr. Holder CEO. So recently, actually, some experts pointed out that so I'm from Japan, and in Japan, so the very fewer CEO, Dr. Holder CEO, and that, or the Dr. Holders in that company makes the fewer, less innovation. And so on this premise, also you had worked at the consulting firm. And so how do you think those experience or knowledge skill set contribute and connect your current work and career?
Okay, thank you. And then we had a person on the aisle a little bit farther down.
Hi, my name is Ross, and I'm a software developer. And you mentioned during your section on investments about investments in AI and machine learning models. And I was curious if we could get some more information on how learning models will help as a green energy technology, and if it's a mitigation or resilience technology. And then I guess as a little bonus, we know that it takes a lot of energy to train large machine learning models. And I was just curious how you measure something being net neutral based on development time and energy expenditure, and how you do that for machine learning.
Thank you.
So how do you go from PhD to CEO? I think that the thing that is the through line for me is translation. And when I say that, it is the ability to go from maybe what scientists are doing at the bench, or what technologies are in terms of kind of the detailed implementation of them, or the clean energy plan, detailed implementation, and share that at a level appropriate to whatever audience that you're speaking to. So, I think that over the years, I've done a lot of translation of science to business people, for example. I've done a lot of translation of, concepts related to engineering to audiences that, might include state government officials that aren't as savvy with the specific technologies. So I would say that that's probably the thing that is the biggest through line. The other thing is, whenever you're a scientific researcher, you have to come up with an original research proposal. And there's something, I think, that's aligned with that, and setting a vision for an organization, right? It's not something that someone else has come up with in the past. You're always you're inventing something new by nature with an original research proposal. And with a company, whenever you're starting or leading a company, you're usually coming up with something that no one's done before. Otherwise, someone else would already be making money off of it or, building it. So those are two things that come to mind there.
That's pretty cool. And then we had a question about essentially AI and large learning models and their use of energy in this field.
Well, I think what we've seen is AI is everywhere and continues to expand and grow. And there are so many applications we are dealing with every single day that we don't even know are there. I think when you think about energy and the things that we are trying to ensure happen with reducing carbon emissions, there is a lot about kind of consumer behavior and helping people to make different choices than maybe they automatically would through the amount of or the different information that is coming at them. I think though, whenever I think about AI, I think about data centers as well as being something that will increasingly, I think, be a challenge that intersects with clean energy in a sense that that is a lot of energy that we need to figure out how to make sure that we're not adding to strain on our grid in particular. So I don't have a perfect answer for you there, but I can probably direct you to someone who knows a bit more about AI and climate tech applications.
Okay, so we are going to do our last question and then move on to sort of informal discussion and networking on the ground floor in the Newsfeed Cafe. And we had a question right down here in front.
Thank you. I'm Jetiat Souza. I'm from Angola, Postgraduate Fellow at MIT. And my question is, I would like to know at what stage do you usually engage with community for implementing the renewable energy projects, and whether you find much resistance from them in terms of concerning land conservation or for environmental groups there? Thank you.
So the question is, when do we engage with communities?
Yes, when you start implementing these renewable energy projects and technology, if you engage with the community before implementing that, and you'll find resistance from them.
I will tell you that in Massachusetts, we do a lot of stakeholder and community engagement before we site or permit anything. It is a very much a part of, I should say, backing up a little, I mentioned a few times the siting and permitting bill. I think it is likely true that in different parts of the state previously, like different towns have different levels of resources of people that can hold, discussions or do outreach. And that may vary across the state. But I think what we're trying to do now is be, not only streamlined, but standardize some of the processes so that no matter where you are, we are making sure that we're doing that outreach and reaching the potentially, I don't know if impacted is the right word, but the proximal folks that would be near any clean energy siting.
Okay, so it's good to be in Massachusetts, I think. Anyway, please join me in thanking Dr. Emily Reichert.